Currently, Earth. It was December 27th in the year 1904 that the play Peter Pan by James Barrie opened at the Duke of York's Theatre in London. Barrie was born in 1860 and studied at the University of Edinburgh. He worked as a reporter for the Nottingham Journal for 2 years after college. He moved to London in 1885 and became a freelance writer. His first collection of sketches, Auld Licht Idylls, was published in 1888 and became a success. This was followed by an account of his days working in newspapers called When a Man's Single. He published a collection of stories in 1889 and a best-selling novel, The Little Minister, in 1891. The Little Minister was dramatized in 1897, and Barrie shifted his focus from prose to drama, enjoying a series of successes. In 1904, he wrote Peter Pan. Although he wrote many other plays, few are still performed today, and none had the staying power of Peter Pan. In 1913, he was made a baronet, and in 1922, he received the Order of Merit. He became president of the Society of Authors in 1928 and chancellor of the University of Edinburgh in 1930. J. M. Barrie continued his eternity in London in 1937. In the year 1918, on December 27th, in the wake of the German defeat, members of the People's Guard, the Polish military organization, joined by a number of volunteers, many of them veterans of the Great War, World War I, take up arms against the occupying German army in the major industrial city of Poznan. At the beginning of the Great War, close to 3/4 of Poland was under the control of Russia. The remainder of the country was ruled by Germany and Austria-Hungary. The start of the war between Russia and the Central Powers then saw Poles fighting for both sides. With the downfall of the Russian Empire in March of 1917, the Bolsheviks recognized Russian-held Poland's right to autonomy, and a provisional government was established in Paris. By later that year, however, Germany was in complete control of the country. After the defeat of the Central Powers, the road to Polish statehood seemed to be clearing. A Polish republic was declared soon after the armistice, but the boundaries of the new state had not yet been set by the Treaty of Versailles. Germany was loath to cede any territory in defeat, and still considered much of the country, including Poznan and the surrounding area, its property. An incendiary speech by the well-known Polish pianist and politician Ignacy Paderewski and subsequent counteractions by the occupying German army may have sparked the beginning of the uprising on December 27th in 1918. By January 15th, the rebels had managed to take control of the city, taking advantage of the weakened state of the German army, which, like the entire German nation, was demoralized by defeat and distracted by growing internal conflict. On February 16th, as part of the German Allied ceasefire, France forced German recognition of the Polish army as an Allied force. The High Command in Poznan subsequently submitted to the authority of the new Polish government based in Warsaw. With an initiation date being recorded as December 27th in the year of 1979, in an attempt to stabilize the turbulent political situation in Afghanistan, the Soviet Union sent 75,000 troops to enforce the installation of Babrak Kemal as the new leader of the nation. The new government and the imposing Soviet presence, however, had little success in putting down anti-government rebels. Thus began nearly 10 years of an agonizing, destructive, and ultimately fruitless Soviet military intervention in Afghanistan. Hafizullah Amin was another Afghan communist who continued his eternity as a result of the coup d'etat that occurred when Babrak Kemal took power. Amin's government became unpopular and unstable after it attempted to install a harsh communist regime, declared one-party rule, and abolished the Afghan constitution. Muslims in the nation rejected his rule and formed a rebel force, the Mujahideen. When it became apparent that Amin could not control the rebellion, Soviet troops intervened and put a puppet ruler, Kemal, into power. For the Soviets, political turbulence in this bordering nation, which was viewed by some officials as a potentially useful ally pursuing its interests in the Middle East, was unacceptable. The Soviet intervention cost Russia dearly. The seemingly endless civil war in Afghanistan resulted in the continuance of eternity of thousands of Soviets and untold monetary cost. It also brought an abrupt end to the era of détente between the United States and the Soviet Union that began during the next years. In response to the Soviet intervention, our nation's 39th president, Jimmy Carter, withdrew the SALT II agreement from consideration by Congress. The treaty, which had been signed in June of 1979, was designed to establish parity in nuclear delivery vehicles between the great US of A and the Soviet Union. Carter also halted grain shipments to the Soviet Union and ordered a U.S. boycott of the 1980 Olympics that were to be held in Moscow. Historic information, divulged, and documented on this audio file to be verified by Soviet.